All right, it's time again to take the cut grass, this nice long cut grass, and layer it on the beds to mulch them out. Now, you're probably hearing in the background a leaf blower. The system that we use here does not make any noise. You can listen to your music and relax and not hear the grinding sound of equipment and machines. There's very little fossil fuel. This is just basically buying food that I was eating anyway. And plus, working off the belly right here. But ultimately, I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. What I do with the management of this property is different than what typical people do. It's a lot of good exercise, yet it is recycling nutrients. So grass and carbon sequestered from the atmosphere. You'll see some clover in here as well. And that layers on the beds themselves. Just gotta step over the fence here. It layers on the beds with straw, chop and drop, and other materials to give us rich nutrients on the permanent raised beds without fossil fuel, without additives. I'm simply managing grass in a holistic way. Now, what do I mean by a holistic way? Well, up over the way, that grass and then some grass out back is allowed to grow 4 shoots. So that's basically, now we try not to let it go to seed, but that's basically 4 of these little things. Now, depending on the grass, it might require it to get a little tall. But if you got 4 of these, then the grass can take cutting pressure. Now, we also compost leaves and grass and other materials to top dress beds. But ultimately, the grass cut before it goes to seed is layered on the bed with straw and constantly just keeps layering over and over and over again. Now, we do have plants in here. I lost a few with the frost that we recently had, but I chop and drop some greens, and you can see those greens. If you saw the video about the chop and drop, those greens are starting to wilt out. They were too bitter to eat. And even though I've got a lot of nice leaves and stuff left on it, we actually ate a lot of those collards before they got this big. And now they've got flowers on them. I cut them down in series because I want the bees to be able to get to the flowers. We pull up these materials here. But again, the thick grass, and I'll get 4 or 5 of these loads out, the thick grass actually kills a lot of the weeds that might come up. Now again, no string trimmers, no mower, no leaf blowers. Now this is a demonstration site, so there are areas that are mowed with a lawnmower, but ultimately this long cut grass recovers quickly and then feeds the soil. It's clover, it's alfalfa, it's 3 or 4 different types of grasses. It is cut with a scythe. You can see the cut there. And then layered on the beds. Now, I have some exposed soil in the path here. I might lay some in the path just to walk on. But again, we're just layering over and over again. Now, can you layer too much? Well, no, not really. Especially if you put your plants in from starts. Now, there's some bulbs in here. I may not want to layer too much. It would choke out the bulb, so I'm going to focus on the vegetable beds because I'll put starts out there. And then again, the starts, you just move the straw out of the way, and then you layer the material. You move the straw out of the way, then you put a little compost in the hole, and then you put the plant, and you're good to go. Now, we don't dig out the previous plants. You know, we just chop them off, and then I'll throw the straw over the top. Now, why is the long cut straw important? Well, this grass that we cut here is green, and if it's cut fine like the pile over there, it'll cake up and it'll go anaerobic. So anaerobic means no oxygen. We want it to break down aerobically and act as a buffer for the rains. So the loose straw will sit above the beds and slowly mat down as it decomposes. And you can see how the straw is put on these beds. And it's a little chunky in some places. You can see some charcoal that was thrown in here. But underneath here, it starts breaking down. You can see where earthworms, actually voles, look like voles went through there, and it starts breaking down into a rich soil. And now these materials are just spread out, and you want to, here's the best advice, is that when you get the hay or straw or whatever material you have, you want to cover the maximum surface area. So if you've got a couple loads like this, I want to spread it over the maximum surface area so the material can dry out, the material can have soil contact, and ultimately get a little bit of air into it so that we don't get anaerobic activity. We're going to get aerobic activity, and the bacteria and microbes that eat down aerobic materials are better for your plants because they make nutrients and minerals more readily available. Now, where am I getting some of these nutrients? Well, of course, I'm getting them from the little bit of weeds that do come up, and I'm getting it from the grass here, and I actually mineralize the grass. Now, if we had cows and stuff, I would mineralize the cows, who would then mineralize the grass, and then the grass would mineralize the garden, and then the vegetables would mineralize me. That's kind of how it goes. Well, I'm going to get back to work here. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got questions about the methods that we use, we tend to have grass around the garden areas so that we don't have to haul this material that far, or we're always hauling the material downhill. Anyway, if you have questions, visit www.prosperityhomestead.org.